Thank you so much, Director Jimjimo. And once again, as with our discussions earlier, because we are fortunate enough to have you in person today, we can continue these discussions throughout the day. However, we could take, if anyone has any pressing questions, we might have time for one quick response. If anybody has, yes, please, Dr. Riff.
Yeah, thank you. Great presentation, Mom. And that's long, great. Because yesterday I did with keen interest, and today you have also, of course, extended your discussion on the Ethiopia issue. I'm particularly concerned about Prime Minister Abiy, and yesterday he did say he, of course, is responsible for some of the killings that have taken place in Ethiopia, even if there is like a false media narrative to those issues, and of course the politicization of the problems, as it were. My concern is if all of these crises, of course, started before 2019, do you think is then justifiable for him to have been considered for the Nobel Prize for Peace, given that he has directly or indirectly been involved in a lot of abuses on human rights and, of course, the flouting of democratic ethos in Ethiopia?
Thank you for asking, and it actually gives me a chance to also a little bit elaborate. And for the sake of time, I was, rushing a little bit because we're a little bit behind the conference. So what makes it complicated is the Prime Minister Abiy himself claims and says the international community knows him as Oromo. One of the challenging things that Oromos don't give focus is like, but he's an Oromo. I mean, I've personally spoken to MPs across the whole world, from Australia to Europe, Canada, and America, and I've spoken to fellowship, but he's Oromo. Why is he doing this to Oromo? And keep in mind, he was part of the previous system for 27 years. That was oppressive system led by, its coalition, but it was led by TPLF. TPLF is a Tigray Liberation Front that govern along with with Oromo and other, but TPLF are the leaders. They are accused of oppressing and committing severe human rights violation. That's why they were pushed out of power in 2018, and Prime Minister Abiy, who was a vice president for Oromia, was selected to transition the country for election, for up to democratic election. That election is supposed to take place in 2020, but right before the election, COVID came. But from what we see now, COVID was almost God's gift for the prime minister, because as soon as COVID came, they suspended the election. But because based on the information there and the travel, that have they run for election, there's no way they could win. They just don't have the support of the people, because the Oromo Liberation Front have also came into the country, have a huge base support. There's other Oromo political party, and then TPLF have left the central control, have won to the region, and they have mobilized their people, so they're ready to run. They're ready to make up for what the wrong they did in 2017. So there's no way they're going to win the election. So COVID came a gift for the prime minister. So what made it challenging is the violence they committed even before the Tigray war, because he's an Oromo, because there's really, even though Oromos, they're not that much of religion-wise too much of difference, but predominantly 51 plus are Muslims, and they are in the south, a much less developed area, compared to when you look at the northern part. The northern part of Ethiopia, escape that is between the Tigray and Amhara, are the founders or the creators of the modern Ethiopia, and the predominantly Christians. They are in control of the system. So international community looked the other way for many, many different reasons. But now they're paying the price in what's happening in Tigray. Some call it genocide, some call it, at least the UN have said, up to war crime have happened, and it's happening in Ethiopia. So the Prime Minister got Nobel Peace Prize in December 2019. The same year, Amnesty International published about 49 pages about mass arrest, extrajudiciary killing, village burning. That's happening in 2018. It came out in May of 2020. This was happening when the Prime Minister was receiving a Nobel Peace Prize. Do we think that is a mistake? I think Nobel Peace Prize committee was hopeful because of all the positive movement that was happening. They perceived, but obviously that's going to be a very dark shadow, not just on the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, but the whole continent, I think. But nevertheless, the important part of it is the international community still are too focused, looking the issue as if it's the conflict between bad guys or some Tigrayan liberation movement up north versus the rest of the country. The whole country is on fire, but the international community, especially since it doesn't even matter, I was going to say it since Ukraine, that they continue putting the bandage and trying to address the problems as if it's there. It is important we look into the underlying issue, what led to the conflict in Tigray and what's happening into the rest of the country. But right now it's not happening. Oromos being the largest, where the peace come to Ethiopia, in the region. Oromos are not just in Ethiopia, they're in Kenya too, in there. Where the peace come to the region, Ethiopia, or stability come to the region, depends on the Oromo people because of their size. But yet, you don't even hear about them. You don't, there's no conversation that is going on that really calls for Oromos, even though just this week, 107 people have been killed just a couple of days ago. 100 people in Ethiopia, especially in Oromia, it doesn't make it to news. You have to die like maybe 500, 1,000, maybe will make it to the news. Every single week, at least 50 to 100 people die in Oromia, and the government conceals. Nobody's talking about it. I took my time to expand it, but thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for the response. And once again,